Secretary of State Anthony Blinken of the U.S. meeting with China and President Xi Jinping. What did you make of this visit and also this push by the Biden administration to normalize relations and almost act like everything is okay? The spy balloon, they said, was, oh, that was just an accident. They didn't mean to do it. What did you make of this, Greg?
Well, look, it's a bit hard to read the Biden administration because Joe Biden is so, perennially confused in his pronouncements and so on. But overall, James, I would give the Biden administration good marks on China. Bad marks on a lot of other things, but good marks on China. They've been pretty resolute. They've followed through with AUKUS. They're going to make nuclear propulsion for submarines available to us. They've passed, and the president has signed legislation restricting high-tech exports to China. They've been quite tough-minded in international fora. Now, you can see the latest moves as simply a sensible, prudent desire on their part to manage the relationship. So, even with the Soviet Union during the Cold War, you had all kinds of mechanisms to manage the relationship, to make sure there was never an accident or that you never got to conflict through miscalculation. The Chinese have been incredibly resistant to setting up a hotline or imposing guardrails or anything like that. So I don't want to put a bad interpretation yet on the Biden administration. We'll see what unfolds. But so far, I think they've been pretty good. But there is a danger of confusing their message, of course, to their own electorate and to the wider world. But I wouldn't reach a negative conclusion yet.
Interesting. All right, finally, before I let you go, I'm absolutely fascinated by this story out of the Middle East, to go to the other side of the world. Meeting between Saudi Arabia's foreign minister and his Iranian counterpart in Tehran. Now, considering the tensions between these two nations, what do you make of this? And does this show that the Abrams Accords are just, that whole era is now over? Are the Saudis and Iran now getting too close?
Yeah, so I think this is a very concerning development indeed, James. And whereas I think the Biden administration has been good on China, I think it's been disastrous in the Middle East, utterly disastrous. It hates the Abraham Accords because they were designed by Donald Trump. Maybe hates is too strong a word, but it doesn't invest in them because they were a success of Donald Trump, and it has a doctrine that nothing Trump did is any good. The key partnership in the Middle East after US-Israel is US-Saudi Arabia. The Saudis are not a lovely regime, there's no doubt about that, but they're not the worst in the world and they're not the worst in the Middle East. And they have been very important strategic allies of the United States for many, many decades. And the key fault line in the Middle East got nothing to do with Israel. It's between Shia Islam, and represented by Iran, and Sunni Islam, represented by Saudi Arabia. But the Biden administration has been so, dilatory and such a dilettante in relation to Israel, so unenthusiastic about the Abraham Accords, and so basically hostile to Saudi Arabia, that it has pushed the Saudis into an accommodation with Iran, or at least it's pushed them in that direction. Now, if that really bears fruit, that's very, very bad for American interests, because that would free Iran and it would empower Iran. And Iran's agenda is diametrically opposed to the agenda of the West and of the United States and of democracy and of Israel and of all of our friends in the Middle East. So, I give Biden pretty good marks on China. I give him very, very, very bad marks in the Middle East. And this is an early fruit of that.
Greg Sheridan, thanks for your time. Appreciate you breaking down that shocking little bit of diplomacy for us.